So last week, whenever we started our sermon, the Sermon on the Mount, I don't see my notes in my pocket. There it is. I apologize. We looked at the very end. And so today we're going to be jumping into the first part of the Sermon on the Mount. And last week we were looking at how the Sermon on the Mount ends, which is an encouragement to live our life based on Jesus' teachings. And if we live our life based on Jesus' teaching, it's going to be like we build our lives on a rock. But if we build our lives on something else and we're building them on shifting sand, and at some point there's going to be little storms that will come in our life that we've all encountered, that we all know, but there's also going to be a judgment day coming. And for those that build their lives on the rock, that they are going to be found good in the eyes of God. And those that build their lives on the sand, that's going to collapse. And the difference between those that build their lives on the rock and those that build their lives on the sand is the rock is putting your faith and your dependence on Jesus Christ and hearing his teachings, but also doing his teachings. And so today we are going to be looking at probably one of the most famous parts of the Sermon on the Mount. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to preach about 8 different sermons this morning. All right, so Jordan, you're in the back. Kind of keep me on clock. I don't try to preach long, but I honestly can take each of these and they can be independent sermons. So you're going to have to roll with me fast. We're going to be in Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 1. You have Bibles in the back if you need a Bible. If you don't have a Bible at home, that's our gift to you. Feel free if you have the Bible. And Jordan is grabbing his own Bible. Good job, Jordan. And if you need to, there's apps on your phone. Follow along with the phone. We'll also have scriptures up here on the screens for you as well. We want to make sure that's easy for you to have access to God's Word. And so, as we jump into this, just a little bit of background. Jesus has just gathered his disciples, and he's in the Sea of Galilee, and he's taking his disciples up on this mountain overlooking the Sea of Galilee, and he is starting to teach them about what this new kingdom that's being ushered in by Jesus looks like, because he's talking to them about the kingdom of heaven. They are excited for this Messiah to come, this one who's going to restore Israel to God and put Israel back in its rightful place, and they are looking for an earthly kingdom to be established. But what Jesus came to do was to establish a heavenly kingdom. And Jesus did that both in teaching us about it and preparing us for it. But whenever Jesus died on the cross and was risen again, his kingdom was here and was established here on earth, the kingdom of heaven. If you're a Christian, then you are part of that kingdom. You may still live here on earth, but you're a part of this greater kingdom that is here, that's going to come in its fullness. And that greater kingdom, that kingdom of heaven, will come in its fullness whenever Jesus comes again. And so today we live like in an in-between. It's here, but it's also coming fully. And that's why it's important that we do things like start churches, because this is an expression of that kingdom of heaven in a tangible, physical way here in West Valley and Magna. So let's look at what it looks like and what are going to be the attitudes that are going to be valued within the kingdom of heaven. So it starts off with a brief introduction in chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. And it says, when he saw the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and after he sat down with his disciples and came to him. Then he began to teach them, saying, and the first one we're going to look at of these kingdom attitudes is, blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. And we're going to be using an outline that I got from another biblical scholar named Daniel Aiken. And I like how he puts it, because it sounds like when we look at blessed are, that this is either who you are or who you're not. But this is what Jesus is encouraging us to become. And I like this language that he uses of delight. Because it's not happy, it's not joy, it's something more than that. It's something that can exist in our life always. And I like the way that he uses the word delight. But we're also going to talk about this. This just isn't who you are or who you're not, but this is who we are becoming in Jesus, to be part of the kingdom of heaven. And so the way he uses it here, it says, delight in your spiritual bankruptcy. You know, why do you want to be poor? Why do you want to be poor in spirit? Because part of being poor in spirit is whenever we see God and his goodness, and we see the greatness of God, and we see where we are at, and we see that separation between us and God, we realize that chasm, and we realize how poor we are in relationship to God. And whenever we realize that separation of how poor we are, one, it does create a sense of us lacking and not having enough. But whenever we realize that we are not enough in comparison to God, we look for a way to close that gap because we can't do it on our own. And the only way that we can get back in relationship with God is through Jesus Christ. And so, blessed are the poor in spirit, delight in your spiritual bankruptcy, because it's in that stage, whenever you're there, that you are then able to accept the work of Jesus, and you're able to have that relationship with God. The next one is, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Daniel Aiken says, delight in your grief over sin. If you've had a sin issue in your life, if you've had an addiction, if you've been going in the wrong direction in your life, at some point you've hit rock bottom. And oftentimes before you hit rock bottom, you spend your life running, trying to avoid rock bottom, because whenever you are in rock bottom, it is a season of grief, it is a season of mourning, it is a season of sadness. But if you've had a life where you've had addictions, or you've had other things in your life where you had to hit rock bottom for your world to change, the best thing that could have happened, and the best place that you could have been, was at rock bottom. And for some of you here today, it's possible that you may be in a season where you're at church, but really in your life you are running from God. And you are afraid to fall on your face. But it's whenever you fall on your face, it's whenever you're stopped running, that God is able to be there to comfort you. And we want to be comforted by God, but we can't be comforted from God while we're running from God. But whenever we come to a place that we are ugly crying over our sin, both in our lives and the sin in the world, that God is able to comfort us. The next one is in verse 5, and it says, blessed are the humble, for they will inherit the earth. Are you guys starting to get the theme here? These are things that are valued in the kingdom of heaven, but not things that are valued here on earth. Kingdom of heaven values them, but they're not valued here in the kingdom of this world. And we see here, this is delight in your dependence and submission to God. Whenever the words here, meek and humble, what they're talking about is that this is somebody who finds themselves in submission to another person. They allow that other person to make the decisions for their life. And some of you may have some areas of your life like that, where you've given up your own free will to that person. Maybe it's a job. Maybe it's in some areas of your life. And he's saying here, blessed are the humble, blessed are the meek. We don't want to be meek. We want to be in control of our lives. But what he's talking about here is a person who's able to give a blank check to Jesus and say, Jesus, you are over my life. But in order to do that, we have to take on this attitude of a dependence and submission to God. But then the result of that is that person is going to inherit the earth. It seems like the strong are going to be the ones who inherit, but no, it's going to be those who submit their lives to Jesus and let Jesus make the decisions for their lives. All right, how am I doing, Jordy? Okay, I'm doing good on time. All right, my goal is not to have a long sermon, even though I have a lot of sermons. Okay, and so next we're going to look at verse 6. It says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. I don't know if you've been in a season of your life where you've been hungry, where you've been thirsty either by your own decisions or by decisions of a circumstance that were placed on you. But whenever you are hungry, there is nothing that will satisfy than food. And whenever you are thirsty and you are parched, people will go through great lengths to have something to quench their thirst. It's the only thing you think about. It's the only thing that matters is being able to get food, being able to get drink. And if you are not able to get food and you're not able to get drink, you know that your life is going to start to shut down. It's that important to you, that your very life, it doesn't matter what else is fun, what else there is. You are single focused on eating and single focused on drinking. And we need to delight in our longing for God. We need to be about the things of God. We need to have a hunger and a desperation for the things of God. We need to say that there's nothing else that will satisfy us. There's nothing else that will fulfill us other than God. And what Jesus says here, he says, if you hunger and thirst for righteousness in that way, then you will experience what it is like to be filled. Moving on. And we start to shift here where this is what happens as a result of the previous Beatitudes or the previous kingdom attitudes. And we see in verse 7, it says, blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. And we have here delight in forgiving others. Mercy is giving to somebody something that they do not deserve, typically because they have wronged you or wronged somebody else. They have created a debt. We see mercy, oftentimes the thing that comes to my mind are the gladiators in the Roman Colosseum. And after a gladiator was defeated, he would yell out for mercy. This was somebody who just moments before was trying to kill the person they're asking for mercy from. And they turn to that person, they say, I was trying to kill you, I was trying to destroy you, I was trying to remove you from the face of the earth. But now in this moment on my knees, I ask you to forgive us, forgive me, even though I don't deserve it. If we are a Christian, part of what that means is our sins, the things that we have done that separate us from God, have been forgiven. And if we know forgiveness of our sins, how much more should we be about showing mercy and forgiveness to others around us? We need to delight in forgiving others, because whenever we forgive others, then we are acting in the same way that Jesus acted towards us. Our sin meant that we should know death and we should be extinguished from the earth, and hell is what we deserve. But because of Jesus, we can live in the kingdom of heaven because of his forgiveness. And if we know that forgiveness, then we should be about forgiving others. All right, next. Man, we are moving through these. This is like a whole bunch of sermons. I hope you guys like sermons, because this is just like a machine gun approach to sermons. Next, we're going to look at, blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Delight in a clean heart. God changes us from the inside out. God doesn't come to us and say, you need to figure out your life and you need to do these set of good works, and then you will be pure. No, it's about allowing Jesus to cleanse us, allowing Jesus to do for us what we cannot do, and us being changed from the inside out. Because if we have a pure heart, is what the Bible teaches us, then the words that we say will be good, our actions will be good. If we can clean the inside, the outside will be pure also. Next, blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God. The word peace is mentioned in the Bible over 400 times. This is a major idea of the Bible. As Christians, we are supposed to be about making peace. Our role is to be peacemakers. One of our roles is that we need to be helping make peace between man and God. That's called evangelism. We are letting people know that they may be enemies of God, they may be running from God, they may be angry with God, but it doesn't matter where they're at in this moment, that through Jesus Christ that they can be reconciled with God. And we can be reconcilers, and we can be bringing them back to God. And that's evangelism. The other role that we have as Christians is renewing relationships between people. And a church should be that. In a church, we need people always functioning as peacemakers. In the best case scenario, a church is like family. And if your family is like my family, sometimes you need a peacemaker. Oftentimes in my family, I'm the one that's been accused of not causing the peace. But in your family, you need somebody in your family that's helping to draw people back together. And as Christians, we do that within the church. As a Valley Light Church, we want to be about creating peace with man and God and creating peace amongst man with man. Lastly, starting in verse 10, blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. You are blessed when they insult you and persecute you and falsely say every kind of evil against you because of me. Be glad and rejoice, because your reward is great in heaven. For that is how they persecuted the prophets who were before you. This is the one that for me maybe causes me to pause the most. Delight in your persecution, because you are in good company. I've heard many preachers tell us that if we follow Jesus, if we're obedient to Him, then everything in our life is going to be okay. You know, we're not going to know pain, we're not going to know sickness, we're not going to experience the different ills of this world, but that's not what Jesus teaches us. Jesus told His disciples, follow me, I am going to be persecuted, people are going to lie about me, and if you follow me, you will experience the same thing. But if you follow me, you will end up where I end up, and that is in heaven. All right? And so here's the thing. If you want to follow Jesus, then you need to look at where Jesus went and what happened to Jesus, because you're going to probably end up in the same place. But here's what Jesus tells us. If people persecute you because of me, then you're in good company, because that's where I am also. And so stand up for Jesus, proclaim Him loudly. And the truth is, if you live in Utah and you live in West Valley and you are a loud Christian, there's going to be times where you're going to experience persecution. But we delight in it, because we know whenever we experience that persecution that we are being formed and made into the likeness of Christ. So how am I doing, Jordy? Did I get through it? I did? I'm so proud. Okay, so we have a special guest with us today. My mommy's here. Hi, Mommy. Raise your hand, Mommy. That's my mommy. She lives in Oklahoma. I really don't like it whenever she comes and hears me preach, because it puts extra pressure on me, because she's like my toughest critic. And so I typically try to embarrass her whenever she comes to hear me preach, so maybe she'll come less. So my mom, whenever I was growing up and going to elementary school, she went to these really wild parties. I mean, absolute ragers. And as elementary kids, she made us go to these parties with her. I mean, there were people dancing everywhere. I mean, as soon as the music started, people started dancing, and they were dancing like they didn't care. There would be certain songs that would come on, and just the whole dance party would just start screaming and going crazy. And as a little elementary kid, it was a little intimidating at times, because, this is just almost out of control parties that are going on. And I can remember vividly when we'd go to these parties, and there'd be this one song that would come on. It was like the bass dropping at Coachella. It didn't matter what was going on. Everybody's on their feet and they're dancing, and it was YMCA. Oh, man. These are adults, and everybody's on the dance floor. They're busting out YMCA with everything they had. But the people at the party were all kind of weird. They were different. They didn't quite fit in normal society. Most of them weren't married. We're talking probably ages between 20 and 60. Most of them aren't married. A lot of them lived in group homes with other people, 4 or 5 other adults. And probably the other half of them, they lived with their parents. These weren't exactly the cool kids. But at this party, it is happening. So a few little details I'm leaving out about the parties. My mom worked at a place where she helped people with different disabilities. I'll say that in quotes for today. A lot of them were Down syndrome and other mental disabilities. She helped them get jobs and establish jobs and find work. And so that once in a while they would have these dance parties where they would all come. And as I looked at the parties, I looked at the people that are there, they didn't match up to a whole lot of what we would consider good by our own standards and by our own worldly standards. They didn't have the jobs, they didn't have the smarts, they didn't have some of the other things that would be signs of success in this world. But here's what they had. Whenever they walked into the room, everybody yelled their names and gave them hugs. Whenever their song came on, they could easily find a friend to get up and dance with them. And it didn't matter what they were going through in life, they were just happy to be there. And they didn't have the different trappings of the world that we say that we need to have to be successful and to be happy in the world. But they were experiencing the joy and happiness that we want to have, even though they weren't experiencing things that so many of us are chasing after. And for a lot of us, if you're here, you're interested and you want to live within the kingdom of heaven. In the kingdom of heaven, the people that are going to be dancing, the people that are going to be there, the people who are going to be with Jesus, they're going to look more like these kingdom attitudes and more like my mom's parties than it may look like the success that we have in the world. The people that are going to be there are the people who know that they are not good enough in themselves and they are poor in spirit. The people that are going to be there are people who mourn over their sin, over the sins of the world. They're going to be the people who are humble, that are willing to let somebody else, primarily Jesus, make the rules and the decisions for their life. They're going to be the people that are hungry and thirsty, not for what they can gain from the world, but from good that they can find in the world. They are going to be people that are all about forgiveness and showing mercy and not holding grudges because they know what forgiveness is like. They are going to be people that their lives and their outward lives are going to be represented by a pure heart because they've been changed from the inside out. They are going to be trying to make everybody around them get along and be at peace, both with God and with others. And last of all, they are going to be people that aren't going to be ashamed that they are persecuted. And they may even delight in that persecution because the person they love more than anything else experienced it also. The kingdom of heaven is here and the kingdom of heaven is coming. And I encourage you today to change the things that you are pursuing. Change the things that you are delighting in and make them about these attitudes. So that way, as the kingdom of heaven continues to be fleshed out here and to come, that you will be ready to participate in that kingdom because the values of the kingdom of heaven that Jesus is ushering in is different than the values of this world.